Hi, everybody. I'm so glad you're here in our Parenting Lifeline series. I know you always have a lot of questions about our PEMF, but we're going to really be talking about PEMF, the science of it, how it calms kids' brain, stress levels, and focus. And as always, please ask questions wherever you are in the chat, whether you're watching this live or you're watching the replay, right? So, what if I told you that gentle energy could regulate your kid and their brain without medication or side effects? And that is why I love PEMF. So, I'm going to explain what PEMF therapy is. What the heck does that acronym stand for? And why it helps dysregulated kids, regardless of a diagnosis or not a diagnosis, and it helps kids handle stress better, right? And, if you've been watching this Parenting Lifeline series as I, do these, because we are living in a very stressful world, even when we have nice houses and we're loving and we don't think our kids have stress, they have stress around them. And, Sarah was a mom who came to me exhausted, and she had an 11-year-old son named Ben, and Ben couldn't sleep, right? And this is a conversation I have a lot with people, is a lack of sleep, including moms in the perimenopause, menopause time. But basically, he was anxious all the time. He was having meltdowns. They tried supplements, they tried therapy, working with a behaviorist, cutting screens, and nothing seemed to work. Things sort of helped here and there, but they just couldn't seem to get over this and kick this, right? So they came in for a brain map. As I always tell you, you don't always need a brain map. It's a great thing to have a brain map. But basically, he had a very overactivated brain and it just couldn't shift off. We need to power down in order to power up. Otherwise, you're going to see focus problems. You're going to see some of these things that Ben is showing, unique to each person. So we then started with Calm PEMF, right? And it's gentle, non-invasive technology, and it rebalances brain cell communication, right? And within 2 weeks, they started to see that he was sleeping a little bit longer, and then finally he slept through the night within 2 to 3 weeks. And shortly after that, they had a parent-teacher conference, and the teacher asked, "What are you doing differently?" AKA, do you have this kid's on meds? And he said he was a different kid. So that's always exciting when you know your kid's having a hard time and you see them, people acknowledge it. And because we're worrying. We're worrying all the time. We're driving the worry train. So what actually is PEMF? What does it stand for? So it's pulsed electromagnetic field therapy. That's what it stands for. And it delivers low frequency magnetic pulses that support healthy cellular function, and it calms the nervous system, right? So every cell in the body, right, in the brain and body, communicates through electrical signals. And so when stress disrupts those signals, PEMF can reset it, right? I mean, anybody who knows me knows I have this thing on me all the time. It's sort of like, if you think about it, it's like gently tuning in a radio station, right? There's lots of static, but PEMF lets you get to that right frequency, right? And there are 3 ways PEMF really, and we're going to talk about how it affects the brain, but overall, there's 3 ways that it helps mental wellness and helps physical wellness. So number 1, it's changing the way the cells are communicating with and functioning, which is a huge deal. We're going to talk about ours because ours has very specific frequencies designed for specific issues and needs. And then 2, it's going to pull you out of that sympathetic stress state down into a parasympathetic state. What's cool is most people who at least do use ours, about 90% notice it immediately. It's still working in those 10%, but they might not notice it. In fact, I find that people who generally are sort of always kind of happy, like Mr. Hodge, he doesn't notice it. He doesn't feel it like me, like, oh, wow, this feels like I'm in the hot tub. he notices the physical changes. That's where he notices it the next day. So everyone's a little unique, but most people feel that relaxed parasympathetic state that most of us are craving. I mean, I crave it. I'm a spaz. I need it. And then lastly, it's going to reduce inflammation because it improves detoxification. So all three of those are very important for mental wellness, right? You see how I left out genetics? You see how I left off medication, right? This is working at the cellular level. It's much more powerful. It's pretty amazing. So, how does this work actually in the brain, right? So, pulses influence cell membranes, improving oxygenation and energy, that ATP process. So the way the cells work, number one. And then you get calmer electrical activity. So then you're getting better neurotransmitter balance. So then that also leads to reduced inflammation and improved blood flow. Pretty cool stuff, isn't it? Right. And over time with use, it stabilizes brainwave patterns, especially those linked to focus, sleep, pain, emotional regulation. I mean, I've seen some pretty darn incredible things. I know I talked about Ben because sleep is a common problem, but ultimately, really, his problem was an overactivated nervous system. He was anxious. There were a lot of other behaviors, but because we knew sleep was really his Achilles heel and what was keeping him unwell, that is what we went after, right? You think of PEMF as like a little mini massage for your brain. It releases tension so that the whole system can function, right? And we know we're shifting in science. You're shifting in what you're hearing about. If you're listening to, health podcasts or watching YouTube, they're talking a lot more about cells, right? Because we are concerned about longevity. And these things are all connected, right? So we often think neurotransmitters only, AKA medication. And that is because pharma wants us to think that, right? There are many other ways to regulate the nervous system. That's why we're having this conversation. So you can open your eyes, right? And right, I'm here. I am started regulation first parenting and putting that nervous system first, right? And that's what the next book's all about. Can't wait to share it with you. But we have to regulate first in order for everything to work. The frontal lobes to connect, to correct, to have a good executive functioning. Your executive functioning goes gone. It's biology is going to shut it off. So this is why we have to regulate. And these are tools. Now, I'm a big fan of brain tools, right? I've been doing neurofeedback for many, many years, a few decades. And I've been doing PEMF for just exactly, I think it's 10 years now, and maybe 11. I can't remember. You know how that starts to happen? By the way, I'm going to put this here and I'll put it at the end. We are, for those of us that are here, and you'll learn more about this if you're not on my email list, we are having a special on our COM PMF. You can use code COM250. And then if you want to know more specifically, you have lots of questions about PMF. Number one, you can go in the Facebook group. There's a thread up to ask questions. But you also can join me on the coffee chat on Monday. You have to register for it. Go to drroseanne.com/coffee chat. And if you are interested in the PMF or working with me in my program, which as you all are aware, Dr. Rowe is changing things in 2026. So this is some of the last opportunities to personally work with me. And it will be some of the last opportunities to personally work with me. And I'm saying that so nobody gets mad at me. So sorry, I have the wrong banner up, Marcy. So let's go back. Let's talk about that. And let's see. I know somebody has a question. Oh, no, we don't have a question. But if you have questions about PEMF, let's talk about it because if you have a question, somebody else probably has it. So what are some of the the well-researched benefits of PEMF, right? And what do I know through clinical experience of using this for either 10 years or 11 years? I have to actually go back and look. I think it's 11. So what do we know? So we know it improves focus and learning by stimulating our cellular components and stimulating our prefrontal activity, right? So that's going to help us with our frontal lobes are in charge. They're their boss of the brain. They're here for cognitive flexibility, putting the brakes on when you're about to dysregulate. It helps with executive functioning, working memory, helpful with that. Number two, it helps calm anxiety and mood, right? So when we are in a stress state, when our nervous system is moving into a sympathetic dominant state or living there, that means you're going to be picking up everything and you're going to be reactive to everything. So by pulling the nervous system into a parasympathetic state, which calm PMF does, and all PMF will chill you out, every single one. And I know people have questions about that. I'm going to answer some of those. But what it's doing is it's balancing the limbic system, and it is reducing hyperarousal, so that feeling of being, on a hypervigilant state, it's going to reduce that, right? Once you're out of that activated state, you can be much more responsive. You can learn things. You can use those coping skills that you've been asking your kid if they would use, they've learned from their therapist. But when you're dysregulated, you don't have access to the tools, because the way science works, it's going to shut off your ability to use things that help you regulate, right? So it helps restore sleep patterns, it increases melatonin, and it balances circadian rhythm and lowers nighttime cortisol, right? So a lot of our kids who are in a stress state, a lot of us moms who are in a, running around with our kids or in perimenopause or menopause, we're jacking ourselves up with cortisol. And so we need, and it doesn't want to go down at night. And that's why some of our kids can't go to sleep. They have frequent awakenings. That's why we wake up all the time. So it helps to really calm you so that you can enter into restorative sleep. You need the sleep in order to detoxify. So problems with detoxification, it is affecting every mental health condition you could possibly think of. You may not be hearing that from your allopathically trained doctor, because they're not trained in this, but proper detoxification is critical. And that's not just elimination and pooping, that is detoxifying through your largest organ, which is your skin. So that's a whole other topic. But so it reduces stress and emotional reactivity. Again, reducing that cortisol, it's going to build nervous system resilience over time. The more regulated you are, the more regulated you are. The more dysregulated you are, the more dysregulated you are, because your nervous system forms a habit and a way of responding. And we break that by regulating it, right? So, what happens in real life? Mornings are calmer, less battles. There's nothing like that friction, especially in the morning. That's my trigger time where I'm like, breathe, get your PMF in the morning. I also put on heating pads in the morning. I just need some chill time. So clinical results, right? So that this is what people are reporting to me. So how do people use this? What is this device like? So my device is unique, and it is very different from a mat. So I'm not going to trash talk a mat. I'm not going to trash talk any technology. But what I will do is explain how this is different, how you use PMF, how to get the benefit out of it. This is not a one or done. You need to, stress is here, and you need to constantly counter stress. Mine is on because I was using it. So what happens in our device, right? So mats are not any more powerful, except you have to sit on them. I have this version in a mat. And people wanted to have questions about how to use a mat. I'm not here to answer questions about a mat. So what is different is mine has been tested and designed around hundreds of people with serious clinical mental health issues. So every single, I have two versions. One is stress and anxiety, which also has some OCD components and has a full attention protocol. And then I have infections and toxins for my people that are really struggling with infectious disease and toxins affecting their mental health and are extremely poor detoxifiers. Both support detoxification, both sleep, common genetic mutations. These are really designed personally by me and tested. It's made in Europe. And so it is unique because we know the frequencies of these problems, and mine has them. The other devices do not have that behind it. They are general. They're not bad. They're good. I just had them at myself and I was like, who has time to sit for 2 hours on do this? Not often, right? And I had it on my bed and it's not comfortable and all these other things. So they started to make smaller units and I'm designed my own. So mine has 6 protocols. You turn a button on and they have, here's the 6 protocols, and there's 1 hour, 2 hour, and 8 hour. So you can wear this at night, which many of my people wear this at night. I tend to do a mix of things, and you start out low and slow. So how do you start? You start out 1 hour session, and we have a whole training guide. 1 hour session. Typically, we tell people to do it every other day. And the reason why we start low and slow is very powerful. It really calms the nervous system, and it's a really big detoxifier. And if you're not actively pulling out the toxins in your system, when you go to do something that is powerful, it can create like a dump in your system. So very, very, very healthy. Now, who isn't this for? This is not for anybody that has magnetics. So cochlear implants, pacemaker, shunts, they're all based on magnetics. There pretty much isn't anybody who can't benefit. We use this with, mothers and babies, young kids. You don't want your kid to be in charge of it. It comes in a fanny pack. Every kid is different. You might have a teenager where you're like, I don't want them in charge of it. You might have a 7-year-old where you're like, wow, that kid's really responsible. The kryptonite to calm PMF is water and moisture. You do not want to get this moist, which is why most people use the fanny pack, or they buy one of those clear plastic things that you bring on a boat. And you want to pair this ideally with calm moments where you already are regulated, but it's also great when you're stressed. I'm always grabbing this when I'm stressed. Even some of the ones that help focus you, both of them have things that focus you on the infections and toxins. There's a brain fog. I actually love that. And then on the stress and anxiety, there is actually one for just focus, right? And so, and we can help people make a decision on what is best, but if you are a lot of pandas, Lyme, people want to know which one. If you're over the hump and you've gotten your sort of microbes under control, I always recommend stress and anxiety. If you're somebody who gets a lot of flares, then I would get infections and toxins because you're not balancing out those microbes. But what I have found in general is stress is the greatest destabilizer for everything. And we need something that's easy. I always have this in my pocket, like always have it in my pocket. It's kind of crazy. I mean, the staff is like, oh my God, every time they go to look for one of these, they're like, Roseanne's got it in her pocket. But you need consistency. Some people will use this every day like I do. Some people like to use it 2 or 3 times a week, but we always have stress. So we must counter stress. It's naive to think that we are, we're going to not have stress. So somebody's got a question, what kind of device is the PMF? Does it use electrodes? So no, there's no electrodes. You don't have to be a patient to use this. You can purchase this on your own. And here is, you can go to drroseanne.com, COM PMF. You can use code COM250. This is going to be on sale until Monday, so we can send it out. So you have until 11:59 p.m. on Monday to get the device. So just so everybody knows, people will ask very highly technical. So it's measured, the low magnetic is measured in Gauss, and we have proprietary protocols, and we are not going to tell you the exact frequencies because they are specific to actually, what we've done. We've tested them. They're made in Europe. They're fantastic. It's great. Somebody asked, one of my moms asked, can you sleep with it under your pillow? Not able to wear it at night. We do a lot of creative things to help people who maybe are resistant. I mean, we have kids sometimes who don't want to do treatment. And so there are different ways to do it. So you will always need to keep it close to the body, right? So, ideally our fanny pack is sort of middle, sort of here. I wear mine here a lot, but I have some people, as long as they're not bedwetters, where they put it underneath the person sleeping. I like to personally take the fanny pack and put it in between the blanket and comforter with a clip, not a clip that's got a metal point to it, but a clip so it stays into place. You obviously don't want to drop this. The 2 times that somebody has broken it, it's been an adult and not a kid. So it is safe for young kids to use, must be under adult supervision, right? Because again, we don't want kids to throw it. We don't want to drop it in the pool. Don't leave it in your bathroom. Not a good idea to leave this in your bathroom. And because water, once it gets wet, it's not repairable, right? Do you have to use this forever? Great question. So you want to use this forever. Why wouldn't you want to use this forever? It is something that actually is changing the way the cells are functioning and working. And what do we know about good cellular health? It repels autoimmune diseases, right? Unhealthy cells can overgrow and lead to cancer. Healthy cells are linked to longevity. I just was at a conference that I hadn't gone to with my neurofeedback peeps. It was the first in-person conference in 6 years. And actually multiple people said to me, "You're reverse aging. What are you doing?" And I said, besides my PRP facials, I said, "It's this PMF. Like, I literally use this every day. Like, it's that important." And it wasn't like I wasn't using it before, but having the portability, I can bring it with me. I travel with it. I always have it. I bring it to parties. It's just such a wonderful stress reliever. What's great is, by the way, people always want to ask me, a lot of my families, they buy it for the family, right? Because it's definitely an investment. And by the way, our sale this is our biggest sale of the year. This is the time that we do it. And with the uncertainty of our tariffs, which have totally affected me, because this is made in Europe, you just don't know, right? At some point, I wasn't even sure this year if I was going to be able to continue, but it's okay. So consistency is key, long-term usage. When you're having a really hard time, you probably do want to use it daily, right? You're going through a rough time, you're not sleeping, use it daily. When you are really just looking to maintain, maybe using it 3 times a week. But you literally click a button and you turn it on. If I can turn it on, sorry, wrong button. And it says it's going to be okay, because it is. And then you just rock and roll. And you do that. Plugs in, it's a USB charger. And here it turns on, it runs itself. It gives a little doo when it's on and it's off, and it's really great, right? And, that same family, Sarah and Ben, they were using it primarily at nighttime. And then over time, he just fell asleep faster, and they did still continually use it, but maybe not as long. It wasn't like the end of the world if he didn't use it one night, but they just made it part of their nighttime routine, right? What I also love about PMF, it's very compatible with other forms of regulation, right? We want to have multiple things in our life to regulate ourselves. Are we adding magnesium, right? Are we doing somatic exercises like, butterfly tapping? Are we doing breath work? When you do these things together, they amplify everything. They work together, right? And we need constant stress reduction, right? Because when the brain is calmer, right? Regulation first. When the brain is calmer, all the other therapies you're doing, talk therapy, maybe you're doing PT, maybe you're doing dyslexia intervention. I could go on with story after story of people come in all the time and do a brain map and only get PMF. Some people don't even do that. They get our PMF. So we have people constantly, right? One of my favorite stories is just about a year ago. It's probably about a year ago. We had a kid who didn't poop for 30 days. We had been to the medical doctor. It was very much tied to obsessive compulsive thinking and anxiety. And so we got him pooping. Like almost, he did magnesium. He did my magnesium, which isn't even a pooping magnesium. It's a nervous system magnesium. And he paired it with this, and he's been doing great. He was so activated, they couldn't do any other work. He couldn't go to school. He couldn't do any kind of therapy. And I was sort of a last resort before an inpatient psychiatric placement. And we're talking a really young kid, which I'm always worried about inpatient psychiatric placements. Yeah. Family members can share it, rotate it at night, rotate it during the day. I have some families where they want more of a benefit of the focus, other families who want more of a benefit of the calm, so they're able to share it. I have some families legitimately who, wind up buying more. Somebody's asking, is it safe to go through metal detection if you go through airport security? Yes, it is. So I take mine all the time. I am a sensitive. So I am one of those people, the moment I do anything, I feel it, right? Whatever effect I'm going to feel it. So yes. And, there are testers. We only like our test or the manufacturer's testers because there's all these low quality testers. People get nervous. Like, is this really emitting the low frequency? Because basically it's creating a field, an energy field around you, and it's talking to the cells and getting them to change the way they function and make them work healthier, right? And again, you're often using this because of something specific, but this is like a wellness device that's making you live longer, better, and healthier. And who developed this? NASA for the astronauts. That's where PEMF came from, because we don't know what happens when you're up there, but we do know that your cells aren't working as efficiently. So that's where the technology even came from. Isn't that so cool? I love that. And the astronauts do neurofeedback before they go to space. They got it together, NASA over there. So call me, NASA. I'd like to speak for you. But remember, you got to calm the brain first, then teach, connect, and shift. PMF isn't magic. It's science that reminds the nervous system to regulate. And that's what you have to think about it. I love my tools, but we need to do more of that, right? This isn't replacing parenting. It's supporting your child's biology so your parenting actually works, right? And regulate first. We got to regulate ourselves. We got to regulate our kids. And so, that when we do that, and not just people who work with us in our brain behavior reset program, but people who are following my methods. I had a mom who came to me that she said she's been watching and listening to me for 2.5 years. And she had one child where she implemented my techniques and immediately saw a difference. And then she had another child who's much older, where the struggle, much more clinical significant issues. And so she's bringing him to me. And so we often, he's using technology. He got the PMF. There's different ways that things impact you, but the more we regulate, the more everything works together. So if you would like to purchase this, you want to go ahead, you got until Monday, 11:59. You're going to use CALM 250. And if you're still unsure and you have questions, you can ask in the Facebook group, right? And go to drroseanne.com/group and make sure you answer all the questions. We're not letting you in. We're like Fort Knox over there, so that we don't have weirdos and they're putting in that we should do microdosing. If you're interested in PMF or working one-on-one with me, right? And being one of the last cohorts of people that I'm actually ever going to work with, for real, that is the truth. Go to drroseanne.com, coffee chat, and register. And, I just think I made this because I saw too many people not getting better and staying better. And you needed something that was much more accessible and easy to use. And sometimes we have clinical issues that really require a constancy. I use it constantly because I have a lot of good stress in my life, and your body knows no difference between good and bad stress, and you need to regulate it. So thank you for your questions and thoughtfulness. I'm certainly obsessed with PEMF. That's why I made it as a device. And I hope you make this decision to bring this to your family because it's an incredible tool. So be well, everybody. And remember, regulate first.